So I'm driving down the highway one day, and I noticed over in the fields there was these fences, and the fence posts looked kind of funny. And I knew what they were. I'd heard about them before, and I actually did a video about them, you know, about 2 years ago, something like that. Anyway, video number 105. If you want to go back and watch it, but it's a video about the fence posts. And I thought, well, I'll make another more in-depth, basically, a little better video about that. Not a lot of trees. If you're a pioneer and you're coming out here, even if you weren't one of the first pioneers, you're just some pioneers coming along one day, wanting to move out west where you get free land from the, the government's giving away free land. That's how a lot of settlers came out. That's why they came out, was for the free land. And you're out here and you pull up here with your covered wagon and you decide, this is it. This is where I want to homestead at, right here. All right, you're gonna have to build a house. Okay, there's some trees right over there. And over that next hill, there's some trees over there. And there's a couple trees. They're not very good trees, but you want to build your house. You need wood for things like the doors and shutters and windows and things like this. You don't want to waste that wood on fence posts. And why do you need fence posts? Well, you got to keep your animals in. You've got some dairy cows for milk. You've got some beef cows for raising for meat. You got some sheep or goats, whatever kind of livestock you might have. You need to build a fence. You might want to build a fence, though, not to keep your animals in, but to keep somebody else's animals out. Let's say you got a cornfield right here. The cows get in there, they're going to eat all that corn up. So you need to build a fence around it to protect it from the open range cattle. And back in those days, there was all kinds of fights and arguments back and forth, about water rights and things like this. But there was always fights about the fences. Farmers wanted to put up fences to protect their crops and keep their cows in and their horses and stuff. And the ranchers didn't want it. They wanted open range. They didn't want fences, clogging up the system, so to say, because they wanted their cattle to be able to range openly. Okay, so there's all these fights back and forth about that, and even to this day, just a little side note here, it's illegal to carry not pliers, but wire cutter type pliers. In Texas, it's still, to this day, it's still on the books. It's illegal to carry wire cutters on your person. Oh, antiquated laws that don't mean anything. But back then, the ranchers would carry wire cutters, and whenever some old hayseed, some old farmer would come in and plant some crops and build fences, now his cattle couldn't range openly, so he'd go over and he'd just cut the wires so their cattle could go on through, And the farmers argued, hollered about that, so they made laws about that, so where ranchers couldn't do it. So anyway, so now you're out here and you think, I don't want to waste all my wood on fence posts. So what are you going to do? Well, there's a little outcropping over here, and there's a little outcropping over there. What you do is you make them out of stone. You ever wonder why there's no trees in the western plains? It's pretty treeless, not a lot of forest. Well, a lot of it has to do with Buff. Buff ate them all. You think, well, what? Wait, he doesn't eat trees, he eats grass. Well, let me explain the scenario here. It's hot, it's dry, it's dusty, a lot of grass. A lightning storm comes along. Lightning bolt hits the ground and catches fire. The grass catches fire and burns across the prairie. Okay? It would burn up any... Maybe there's a fire now. I ain't never gonna get this shot. Do you ever wonder why there's not a lot of trees in the western plains? his fault. Buff. My friend Buff here. Wait a minute, what's a buffalo got to do with trees? Well, a buffalo has to do with the lack of trees. Buff here is out in the plains, and, well, let me explain. Let me get back up here. You got all this open prairie, all this grassland, not a lot of rain. It gets hot and dusty and dry, and a lightning storm comes along. There's not a lot of rain in it, but it's throwing all kinds of heck, and it's, you know, big storm and everything, lots of lightning, and a lightning bolt goes down, hits the ground, and catches the grass on fire. And there's wind and everything, and it's blowing and blowing and blowing, and this fire kind of gets out of control and runs across the prairie. Okay? Well, if there's a big tree out there, it's going to catch that tree on fire and burn it down. Okay? So, you'd think, well, another tree will grow up. Well, a little tree would grow up, and he'd get about yay high, and along comes Buff, and he eats it. He doesn't eat the tree, but he eats all the leaves off of it and kills it. So there's no trees, right? So that's why there's not a lot of trees in the open prairie. Now, when the settlers first came out here, it was mostly buffalo. Lots and lots of buffalo out here, okay? And there weren't very many trees. There's a lot of trees in Kansas now, and Colorado and Nebraska and all these, because of farming and farmers and settlements and people. So they're sitting there. What are we going to use for building materials? We need to build corrals. We need to build fences to hold our cattle in, you know, livestock. There's no tree to just go chop down and make a fence post out of. So, being ingenuitive. What's the word I'm looking for? Having ingenuity, they decided to do this. Back in the day, millions of years ago, this was an ocean. It was the Cretaceous Sea, I think. Anyway, during the Cretaceous period, and this used to be the bottom of the ocean. This was all sunken and water was above it. Now this land has been pushed up over time, but it's made all this sediment and made layers, and these layers are of limestone. And what they can do is they can take this limestone, and if you find the right consistency, now this limestone that I'm standing on right here isn't any good. It's all broken up, and you know, it's no good. It's like gravel almost. But over there, a nice little outcropping. Right over there, another nice little outcropping. So what they do is they would go in there and they clean off all this, okay, and they get down to this rock, this thick layer of rock, and they would cut it all up into pieces and make fence posts out of it. What they would look for would be things like this right here, these outcroppings of stone. There's a river or a wash that comes down through here and has eroded this out a little bit, and there's some exposed stone over here. Okay, now I'm right along the highway here because it's easy to get to. You don't have to traipse all over the place. But as you can see right here, oh, we've got layers of sediment rock, okay? And right here is a good example. Let's get you up here. This rock right here, if you can see, where am I at here? Yeah. Anyway, this rock right here, they can kind of clean that up, and if they dig this rock away, this rock here is just the right depth, okay, to make fence posts. What they do is they get this rock up here. They would find the rock up here that's no good, and they would clean it off. Well, just like right here, see that's all nice and cleaned off? Well, there's a perfect place to start cutting those blocks out. They go back about whatever size they wanted, drill all the holes in line, and hammer them in and hammer the wedges in, and eventually that would chip off. They'd load it on a wagon and they'd take off to town and use it wherever they needed it. That's just a real simple explanation of how they did all this stuff. What do they say? The mother of invention, necessity.